how did this person get here to this moment right now? I'm sitting in a coffee shop. I see someone walk up. How did that person get to this moment right now? The amount of billions of different variables that had to happen in their life for me and that person to be in the same room is insane.
I wanted to kick it off with how you first got introduced to Gary because it's a pretty inspiring story, right? A lot of people see a person out there that speaks to them and they're trying to connect with this person. I just think that there's going to be a lot of wisdom for people to pull.
Yeah, my buddy and I were doing a podcast, and we were interviewing a bunch of guests and a bunch of entrepreneurs, and mostly virtual, honestly. Over, and this was like 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. So we did most of our interviews virtual over Zoom. And then my buddy was like, "Hey, there's this guy talking at Columbia University. Let's go check him out." And it was Gary. And because I had interviewed so many entrepreneurs at that point, this guy rolls out and he's wearing a hat that sideways, a sweater, jeans, and Nikes. And I'm like, now that's a guy I could fuck with, you know? And so, saw him talk that night, went home, watched as many YouTube videos as I possibly could about him. At that time, he only had keynotes and the wine videos and a few random one-off videos that he had done with Nate and a few other former people at Vayner who had helped film him a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then I deep dove into him and I was like, yo, I want to make a cool video for you for free.
Yeah, and it didn't go well at first because you got no replies.
Got no replies. Yeah. Got no replies. And eventually at some point, it was raining in New York City, so just like in LA there, pouring.
Yeah.
I was doing a freelance gig, and I'm ghetto. I carried all my lights, my tripod, my backpack, everything with me, and into the subways. I would go through all the doors. I was it was out of control. Now I look back, I'm like, man, no wonder my back hurt for a while there. And so I had made the most money I'd ever made on a freelance job, and it was pouring rain. I walk out of the building that I was filming from. And I was like, fuck this, I'm taking a cab. So this is my second cab in New York City I've ever taken. Wow. And my first one was my ex's aunt at the time. We had gone to a Broadway show and she had paid for my first one. But this is my second cab in New York City I'd ever taken, paid for it on my own. I'm in the cab and my phone goes off, ding, ding, ding. Back in the day, I would have all my notifications on for everything. And so it was me following Gary on Twitter. And again, New York City at that time, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, no service in the subways. So because I had taken this cab in the pouring rain, a thing goes off on Twitter. Wow. Gary's trying out this app called Kik, K-I-K. It's a messaging chatting app. Now
it doesn't exist anymore, does it? Does it exist?
It does, but it became a whole sexting app, and it became this whole gross thing. But before it was a new thing, almost like when Gary's hey, I'm trying out TikTok or I'm trying out this thing. It was like that. And so I downloaded it right then and there, made a username, sent him a message, and that's the moment that he replied.
That feels like fate intervening, man. Do you get that? Do you get that vibe as well?
100%. But I guess a quote that I always used to say is hard work and serendipity. I did the effort to get myself in front of his eyes.
Yeah.
And I did it in my class. I was I want a free video. I don't need anything in return. I just want to help you out. And then serendipity, because you can't, if I was in the cab, I might not have had that one moment where you look, because I look at messages all the time. Mm-hmm. I get DMs and emails all the time. And I'm I get a request to do podcasts all the time. And that day that I said yes to you was a moment that I just felt it, and that's all it is. That's all that moment is. And it's not because of only you, it's the way you approached it, the way you handled it, and also just literally felt it in that moment. And so I think that's where the serendipity part plays in a lot. Too many people don't play in that. They're oh, I sent 5 emails, I'm done.
So that's a good segue, the fine line of persistence and annoyance, right? I'd love to hear some of your wisdom on that.
I've seen every end of these. Annoyance, let's start there. I have gotten people who have flooded my inbox 10 emails in a row, 5 emails in a row, 3 emails in a row, and they think that's going to catch my eye. It caught my eye. I select them all, I delete them, and they go right in the trash. Every time. I'm just like, if you don't understand that that is completely disrespectful, you've already lost before you even started. Number two, annoyance, I would say people who, hey, I want something, and there's no inherent value, or it's completely selfish to them. And you can read right through that. A lot of times people will be like, hey, I want a job with Gary, I want a job with Gary. And we have hired these people and they come in and then they work completely on their own projects, trying to clout hop that they've made it on Team Gary and all that stuff. So I've seen that. Let's move on to persistence. You know, it's funny. Currently, in this moment right now, I'm trying to hire a videographer to be my sidekick, to be the main videographer Team Gary, and editor. And if anyone would send me a random video of a video they made of Gary and it was halfway decent, I most likely would hire that person. A lot of times people just take hey, I submitted the application, I did the form, I did the test that you guys sent out, but I didn't take the extra step to provide the value that they actually need.
Yes, I got to comment to that because I heard you share about you'll have a line going with a potential hire, right? And you'd be like, go through this, 6-7 hours of footage and make something. And they're like, you want me to watch 7 hours? And I'm like, dude.
All it is laziness. And what people don't realize is like, I'm trying to hire somebody who's hungry for it, who wants it, who wants to sit there, breathe video and editing. Like my job is I'm making a short film right now. I don't know if I'm editing a short film right now for Gary. And my job is to watch 12, 15, 18 hours of video to make this project into what I want it to be. Like literally, I'm telling you, if someone sent me a video edited of Gary right now, that was freaking awesome, I'd pass it on to Sid, do an interview immediately, and we'd be on our way. We're
in this instant gratification era. I feel like it's a double-edged sword. We're in an era where it's like you have all these amazing platforms to get on, but people expect it instantly, and it doesn't work.
I would say instant gratification is right, but also they want to be handed something. And a lot of times, the opportunities that I've gotten in my life were never handed to me. I've always worked really hard. But the other step is curiosity, man. If you don't have the patience or the desire to sit through 7 hours of footage and make something cool because you're curious of what might end up happening, then you just don't have what I'm looking for.
Maybe you need to be in a different lane where you would put that level of effort. You know what I'm saying? I got to self-disclose for a second, D-Rock. Yeah. Here's what you're going to like. I'm like a Detroit boy. You know what I mean? I'm used to that sort of Detroit hustle grit thing.
Yeah, the grit. Yeah,
the grit, man. That's a real thing, right? So when I got an opportunity to intern at Interscope, right? And this is before Instagram, this is MySpace days. I would literally go get dinner for the executives. I'd be working from 7:30 in the morning until 6 at night. I'd get dinner and I would bring it back. I'd be like, can I, you guys dessert? And they're like, that's the right attitude, And other interns, man, they would be like, oh, I got to go make 20 copies at the copy machine. I don't want to do that. And I'll just be totally honest. It hurt my soul because I'm like, do you know how much somebody would kill for the spot that you have? Do you feel me on that at all?
I believe I feel that every day, man. I really do. Yeah. I'm not here to cast judgment. What I really want to ask people is why not? Why not take the 7 hours that you would watch Friends and do something productive in your life if you want it? If you don't, and most people don't, I will do 20 copies on a copy machine right now and go get coffee, and everything for everybody. I do that for Gary. That is what I do. I do the dirty work as well as also the filming. And sometimes that can't be taught.
No. You got to have that in you, I think. We had Dave Chappelle's manager on here who also manages Vince Staples, so you might know that. Right. Yeah. And he was saying he was on a video shoot with Vince and somebody needed to go get a jacket from somewhere. He's like, I went and got it. He's like, why not? He literally said that, it's he's like, I'm above it, so you're right.
that's a good segue into like humility, man. Like a lot of this is cool. Yes, you want the great accolades and you want the accomplishments and you want the goals,
Yeah,
but the only way to get there is that be humble,
for
you
sure.
know? And like even the greats will say that. Even the greats will say that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to bring that whole thing home with one last point, man. It's like this just might not be the lane for you, right? If you're dragging, it could be a positive for them. And I think I've heard Gary talk about this. It's like, well, if you don't want it that bad, maybe there's another lane that will speak to you more, and then you'll be flourishing in your life. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. And something I've seen with Gary and seen within Vayner at, I came in at 300 employees. Now we're like 1,500 employees worldwide. We have global offices and everything. What I've seen time and time again is casting is very important. That person might not be good in that position or that exact project. There's video editors on a different team within Vayner. They're not doing great. We move them to another team, they excel.
Wow.
Same position, same job title, just different work that they're delivering on. Even me, like this whole past year, I've been a part of like the Vayner proper, like Vayner X proper. I've been on Team Gary for like 7.5 years at this point. This year I did a little bit more Vayner proper. It's not for me. I'm not creatively encouraged, motivated, driven, or interested in the work. It was a slow year for me in terms of like my output. And that I also think takes a lot of self-awareness, testing on yourself. I believe in myself as a human experiment. I'll try the most random things because I want to see myself teeter and totter in between. Oh wait, why did I do so well here? What helped me excel here? Why did I fail here? You know what I mean? Like, and so always like teeter and tottering. And like I've had many conversations now with Gary at this point of like, I don't think this part's for me, and now I'm like refiguring out my career within the Vayner ecosystem.
That's a gem. Thank you for putting that out there. Something that I think is very relatable for all these entrepreneurs listening on the come up is dealing with rejection. Sometimes it'll just be a closed door. That door is not going to open, right? Okay, so how do you bounce back from that?
To me, you can't bounce back because we're in a world where there's so much opportunity. If you love music and you're not a music artist, meaning you want to be a music artist but you just don't have the talent, there are thousands of jobs within that field that you could do very, very well at. A lot of people say, oh, if I can't have that thing, they give up on the whole thing. And then they go work an office job and they're very unhappy. No. There's like, if you're not a music artist or a star, you can go and work and be the manager of that music artist. You can go and work behind set and scenes. You can work at production facilities. You can work in studio. There's so many outlets that you can use your passion in your field to have a job in the new day and age. But rejection is just part of the entry. Like there is no world where you put in one application. I mean, there might be the 1 in a billion chance that you put in one application, you get the job, you're happy, you have a 12-year career and you're super pumped. But most of the time that's not the case. To me, rejection is oxygen. The no's are part of the yes. That's part of the journey. Russ, one of my favorite rappers, has a line of like, thank you to all the people that shut the doors on me because now I did it on my own successfully,
Man.
And like that to me is like, that's what it is. It's like, it gives you the motivation, the courage, and the extreme gratitude that you will have when you get the thing that you want. I've woken up every day for the last 12 years of my life being extremely grateful that I get to do what I want to do. And because I worked a job at 14 doing construction with my dad, and I hated it. I love my dad. I love my pops, and like we're the best. I hated working on that construction site. And so I told myself, the day that I did something I liked, I could not complain about work. That's kind of like how I've gotten to where I'm at, mentally, happily, and like, yes, there are down days and you're going to be going through it, but that's kind of where I feel.
That's well said. Just to summarize that, if you don't get that exact thing, you could be happy in an adjacent thing that's in the same world. That's a
like have the self-awareness. Like for me, I'm not the personality who wants me in front of camera. I want to be behind the scenes, but I like to have a voice. So in my world, I was able to build up my social profile and have a voice, not be in front of camera or not be the audio host, not like do the things that I wanted to do. What I love about social media is that you can have the conversations you want to have. So many people think about social media as like, I just can push stuff out, get affirmation and leave, or try to sell a product. I push out content to have the conversation I want to have.
And a lot of those conversations feel very selfless to me, man. I want to, just acknowledge you for that, because I feel like you often will post on IG like, hey, get in the comments section. You never know what kind of serendipity can take place, right?
I love people. That's why I like to be with people. I like talking. I like seeing. I get like DM every day saying, "Oh my God, just met my new business partner," or "Oh my God, just met my girlfriend through a DM."
Through the D-Rock IG comments.
It's happened. And so I have like a few chat groups that have started in my DMs. I'm like, they're just like 20 kids all hustling and grinding, and amazing. I pop in there once in a while, and I love that stuff.
You know what's so cool, man, is so cool is I feel like when you were starting earlier, you were kind of like a passenger to serendipity, and now you could be a driver to serendipity. I think that's kind of dope.
I like that. That's very well said.
Yeah, thank you. I heard you say that prior to Gary, this motivational content thing kind of sparked with you via a Will Smith video.
Yeah.
Right. And tell me about that Will Smith video, man.
Yeah, it's funny. Yes. When I was like at home, I was homeschooled for most of my life until I got to college. I went to college at like 17 because I had like done a few advanced courses and stuff. But when I was home, my mom and dad were my teachers, and I had like friends and social groups and other homeschool groups. But there was no like outside affirmation. It wasn't like I didn't know like what was really going on in the world. So I was on the internet all the time, and I was watching YouTube. YouTube had just kind of come out, and there was this video that someone had put together. It was like random. It was 9 minutes of like random Will Smith talking points, and that video I watched consistently for years because it gave me the courage. There's a few quotes like, if I'm getting on the treadmill and we're on the treadmill together, I'm going to die before I get off that treadmill. That was like, Will Smith had said, in order to build a building, you need to lay a brick as perfectly as you can lay a brick, and do that over and over and over again until you have a wall.
That's amazing. Wow.
And there is so much stuff of like putting it out there in the world, manifesting it, but then also working hard on it. Mm-hmm. That video, I would say, and my mom and dad were very good of like, they taught us great virtues and great, skill sets.
Oh.
Like, that video was like the spark of like, this I can do. I want to make stuff like this. And then that led, me into like, oh, I want to make films. I like 7 Pounds, I like Pursuit of Happiness. I like, The Greatest Game Ever Played. There were so many movies that I liked that like wanted to change the world and like inspire people. And I was like, if I could ever make videos like that, I would be a very happy man. And so when I got to Gary's world, a lot of it, he didn't want to be known as motivational. He pushed so hard against it. Me and Andy on my team, if you ask Andy and myself, Gary never wanted to put out a motivational video. He was not that type of guy. He wanted.
My mind is like just blown right now because all the content is.
He wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to be known as a businessman. And so I would always kind of like push try to do like something motivational. I would always try to find the moments where it was a bit more motivational. And then one day he texts me on like a Sunday night. He's like, bro, I need you at my apartment at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. We need to go film something. So I get to his apartment at like 7 a.m. It's cold. It's like February, freezing in New York. And we do the Monday motivational rant, which is like, fuck you Monday, if you hate your job and all that. His Facebook page went from 500,000 followers to 1 million within the first week. So doubled. And he was like, fuck. Wow. I guess I do have to start putting out this motivational content. And then over time, we just started getting into that realm. I can die happy right now because I've made that one video probably over 100 times that someone is now going on and doing something with their life. And I am fulfilled. And there is nothing else I can do greater than that. So now everything else is gravy, everything else is like, what else can we do to change the world? What
Wow.
else can we do to like inspire people? What else can we do? Like, what else can I make in this world that will help someone be like, fuck, that's cool. Let me go try to do that.
Snaps, man. That's beautiful, man. My serendipity moment was I was actually accepted to go to law school, man, when I was like 23.
Wow.
And yeah, and then literally I was at my local library in the suburbs of Detroit, and I picked up a music book that said A&R, because how else would a suburban kid from, Michigan even know what A&R is? I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make it my life's mission to do that, whatever it takes.
Gary says this all the time too, of like, if there's one person that looks anything like you, sub kid from Detroit, Michigan, like if there is any kid from Detroit, Michigan, or the suburbs of that's ever fucking made it, whether that be fame, success, happiness, career, whatever it is, then you can too. And I think that's super magical too. Too many people don't look at the record, and the record shows that people have made it from nothing.
I want to know how do you make it through creative differences, right? Because I've had some people on my team and maybe we're not aligned, and I'm like, how do you?
Gary broke me. Me wanting to be a film student, I needed the lighting to look great, the audio to be great, I needed it to feel great, I needed it to be great. Not one take wonder, Gary. I need it to we need to edit this, we need to re-edit this. Gary's like, hey, most of this doesn't matter. And like, to me, now listen, if you're in the arts of filmmaking, there are certain things that you should probably focus on. If you're a doctor and you're like, there's things you can focus on.
Depends on the lane, right? Can we just say
it depends on what you're outputting, but it did teach me a very important lesson in life, which is most things don't matter. Working with other creatives, I've gotten humbled. I've worked on short films like this that I spent an entire week on, and they turn out good. They get decent views, people love them. Then I worked on a video for like 2 hours, and it's 1 million views, and it's completely out of control. And that's only because of speed, not really caring about the look and feel, but the message. And so that's my own personal learning. One of Gary's most viewed videos on his Instagram was this video where he dropped these blueberries and he ranted about blueberries. And I didn't pick out that clip. A kid, Dustin, on my team, who was new at the time, found it, put it together. I was like, we put it out there, it crushed. So I think working with creatives, and if you're in the field of marketing or putting out content like what we're trying to do and get attention, you just gotta put it out, man. You never know which one.
You never know. That's the honest truth.
You gotta always be testing. And that's where you just never know which one is gonna strike. You don't know the moment. And that's why we're in such a volume game. We put out 150 to 200 pieces of content a day for Gary across all platforms. We're in continually testing mode,
You get broken down sometimes, right? This is going to work, man. I've been there. This is going to work. And then it's really defeating because, you're working so hard all the time.
That's her humility, the also the perseverance and the knocking on the doors and getting it slammed in your face. That's why all of that stuff does matter, because in the beginning, you're just trying to get the opportunity. And then once you get the opportunity, you guys still take all those same behaviors: humility, hard work, persistence, being okay with failure. Those are all things you still have to do when you get the job. People think all that stuff goes away.
You were challenged in your life. You talked about being in hospitals early. I read some of that. Me too. I had, what Lyme disease is, being on the East Coast side. Lyme disease, nobody knew what it was. Doctors for 8 years, multiple surgeries, and it ended up being a gift for me, man, because I have such empathy, because I know what it's like to struggle in such a extreme way. So, all right, segment. I got a new segment called the ABCs. Okay. So the A is, what was one of your greatest adversities? The B is how did you bounce back, or what helped you bounce back? And the C is how did it change you?
Cool. So A, I was born with a bilateral cleft lip, which automatically means I need surgery from the day I'm born. I needed corrective jaw surgery twice. I had a hernia. I had a hip surgery. I had braces on for 15 years. I had about 13 surgeries. I had a tumor in my left ear. I can't really hear in my left ear. So those are some of the A's. Every day, anytime I went into surgery, I thought I was going to die. Like white light, I'm being passed out. I feel like I'm going to die. Thank you, God, for a great life. Goodbye. And so then every time I woke up, it was painful, recovery and process. Jaw surgery is no joke. 18 days of no eating, and I did that twice throughout my whole life. That's a lot. And so, like, for me, is like, cool, if the human body can get through all of that torment and all that, like, pain and all those things, that means the human spirit is strong as hell. And so, like, you must believe in that. You must go for that. I'm a champion of the human spirit because, and that's why, like, again, motivational films always were awesome to me. Will Smith's quotes really hit me because I fucking had to get over it, you know? And then I think that stuff really helped me. And that's why all that is so deeply rooted in me of like, if I can make this video and one person does something with their life, I literally am done.
That's incredible. So the C would be the how did it change you would be like, well, it's caused you to want to give this gift to others, basically, which is
and you can't make someone experience those things, but you can educate and inspire and go at it from an angle that they might be able to understand. And right now we're such a surface level world. I mean, people are crying that they don't have a Lamborghini. People are crying that they don't have a Rolex. People are, and it's like, we did one trip back in I think 2017 to Africa. Gary's on the board of Pencils of Promise, a charity that like helps build schools out in Africa. Yeah,
Adam Brown that runs
Adam Brown, incredible human. He's on our sports card thread. I'm so proud of that kid. Great organization and a great cause. Went to Africa, saw children who literally have literally nothing. Like if you like look around your life. Like that board in the back with Connection is Magic is more than they own. And that's like crazy. And they're running around smiling and laughing. And they're washing their hands in the dirtiest water. They have 6 miles to walk to get fresh water. And it's filled with like dirt and disease and bugs and all this stuff. To me, when I came back home and I turned on the tap and I had water in my cup that was like clear, that to me, now there's literally nothing to complain about. Now, like, you hear somebody like screaming at the barista, I want an oat milk, not fucking almond milk.
Happens about like twice a day here.
That, you're just like, wow. Like, people just don't get it. Like, how grateful, like, to be in life, you know?
That was really beautifully said.
I think about life all the time of like, how did this person get here to this moment right now? I'm sitting in a coffee shop. I see someone walk up. How did that person get to this moment right now? The amount of billions of different variables that had to happen in their life for me and that person to be in the same room is insane.
Wow.
Again, trying not to judge anybody or assume where they're coming from in that moment of time.
Yeah.
And again, this comes from like Gary too, of like, if someone leaves a negative comment on your profile, it's because they're going through a hard time. If you're taking the time out of your day to spew out negativity, you're going through a hard time. Yeah. And so like that's where empathy comes in. And that's where like that person is just going through some shit right now.
We're all human here. So how do you deal with your hard days, D-Rock?
I'm getting better, and I have them often. I'm a Pisces, so I'm very fluid and very up and down and around. You know, anybody who knows me. Let's talk about like creative process. I think it'll help you understand kind of. There are days where I feel super creative. I can bang out a bunch of videos. I feel it, and then there's days like yesterday where there was not one creative bone in my body. Literally like nothing was happening. So what I did was I went over and I started working on email and expenses and all the other bullshit that I have to do anyways in my life. So what I've done is in moments like that, either I switch completely and go try to work on something else that also needs to be done, but just not in the thing that I wanted to accomplish that day, or try to go for a run or gym or a break and like try to break up the pattern and just come back to it. A lot of times you can just stand up, do something else, and then come back. And that's what I've really, really loved about COVID. Knock on wood, I haven't lost anybody or gone really bad pain of COVID. And I know there's a lot of people that have, so I don't want to come off sensitive. But for me, COVID has been a blessing because I've been able to tap into understanding myself a lot better when I am creative, what I can do, giving myself the amount of proper sleep, giving myself the amount of proper fitness and body and mind and health, either refocus, try to break up the pattern, attack something different. And if none of those three things work, then it's a wash day and there's tomorrow,
Will you let yourself have a wash day? Because we could be
you have to
hard on ourselves, man. Like, all right, so check this out. It's like a double-edged sword. I just thought of this recently, right? It's like the drive and the determination and the grit that got us to where we're wanting to go can become a double-edged sword and work against us because now we don't know how to pull back. You see what I mean? I think that you've got to be able to let yourself pull back. And
you have to. You got to have empathy for yourself. We're talking about all these good things of having empathy for other people and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
You also got to do that for yourself. Self-care and self-love are very important.
100%. Okay, so I have a brother who's a therapist and he's been on Oprah, he's been on Dr. Oz. And the reason why he's done these things, I think, is because he's very niche. He's doing shoplifting addiction. So talk about differentiation and, just, I don't know, anything freestyle that comes to you.
Yeah, I think it's funny. A lot of social is built off of like niche and like find your niche, find your groove, find your lane. I think too many people are taking that too far. I think people are becoming one-dimensional. You see a profile, like you're posting the same stuff over and over again. Where I feel like Gary has excelled is because he loves the jets, he loves wine, he loves business, he loves NFTs, he loves all the other like different things. I think that is human. And I think that's why I keep saying have the conversation you want to have. I don't think you need to be niche. I just think you need to just talk about the things you want to talk about, not the things that you think will get you likes.
So be authentic. Authenticity is like,
and I don't like saying that word just because it gets so overused and overdone. But yeah, in the literal term, be authentic.
For me, I'm like, man, when I see bad acting, I can feel it nails on a chalkboard to me.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, a lot of people are living their life that way. And a lot of times that's because, again, we're in flexing mode. We're in, hey, we need to show off everything that we're doing. Hey, we're living a great life. And we're only talking about the good. We're not talking about the bad. Like, I think people like you who have podcasts and platforms like this, it's important to have these conversations, It's very important because that's the way you're going to get right through. And honestly, you can't change the world until you're like good with yourself.
1,000%. Yeah, it all starts within.
And people are going too like heady. Like changing the world is so big, change 4 people's lives around you by just being a good person, and you've already won.
I love that. You're able to go from the macro to the micro. I just want to acknowledge you for that because I heard you share in prepping for the interview. You talked about if you have 20,000 Instagram fans, that you could fill up Madison Square Garden with that. And people are like, I should have 200,000. Yeah, right.
Yeah, on that, let's just talk about this. Let's just talk about social media for a second. A lot of people have like 200 to like, let's just say on average, 200 to maybe 2,000 followers. An average human uses it, socializes, dating, friends, whatever. If you took that same person and put them in a room with every single one of their followers, they would not say that that is a little amount of people. They would say that that is a lot of people. Like 200 people in a room right now is a lot. And by the way, a lot of people are so vain. You don't need a lot of people. You just need the right people. And this is why I keep saying, have the conversations that you want to have.
I'll notice on some posts, I'll lose a handful of followers, 4 followers. And I'm like, that's kind of awesome in a way. Like it bothered me at first, but then I'm like, that's great because I'm like chiseling my audience, people that understand what I'm doing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I think shedding fat and people that don't want to be around you. If you're looking at it as a vanity number, that's where it can hurt your feelings. If you're looking at, that's why I want people to imagine them in the middle of a room with all the people that actually do follow them, because that is powerful and that is like mind-boggling.
Going back to what we said, like the comment about the intern, I saw an Interscope. It's like, I got to make copies. Like I want the dude that wants to be there and is down to work until midnight to be there. Like,
and that's why also patience plays a big game in this. So many people want that viral moment where they're going to get 10,000 followers in a second overnight and continue to build the brand faster. What I like about my growth and what I would say about Gary's growth is he put out videos for 5 years, every day of the week about wine, 30 minutes to an hour long, 5 years. Then after that, that's when he then started doing the business content, the entrepreneurial content, the motivational content, and all this stuff kind of like slowly he didn't have one video that changed his entire career forever. Mm-hmm. What that does for you is you get to have the audience that you build and grow with. And again, audience for me equals community to have the conversation I want to have the conversation with. If people can just really look at it from a more macro level, you're going to understand people a lot better. And so,
100%. I think a good segue, which I want to touch on, is this idea of networking, right? I think that's a really important idea. And
I love networking.
Dude, I feel like I worry about coming off as cheesy. I know I'm not alone in this. I know so many people.
I'm the cheesiest guy in the room. Yes, of course.
Right. So can you speak on that?
Yeah. Are we talking virtual, in person?
Honestly, it could feel cheesy both ways, like straight up. Yeah. Like you could just hit somebody random. Hey, I'd like to take you to a coffee. It still,
Yeah. Number one thing, when you're reaching out to someone in virtual, always provide some sort of value. Even if it's a compliment. Doesn't have to be, I want to do this for free, or even if it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Get to know the person, or you just cold DM them, like go through, like kind of like prepping for this interview. You went through, you got a little bit of context on me, you have things to say, right?
Yeah.
You're able to like drive the conversation you want. Like that's what it is. I would say if you're good at that, which it seems like you are, is you're doing this and it feels great, I would say start with that. Again, back to the lazy thing. Too many people are lazy. Hey, this is what I want. Are you available?
You're explaining the majority of people.
I get coffee DMs and meal DMs all the time. I don't want to do that. I'd rather take a 10-minute call. It's more convenient for me. I don't have the time to go to the restaurant. You know what I mean? It's just like that. I don't want to do that right now. In a room, I'm the most awkward person, but I'll always just like get on my phone or go talk to somebody. Like to me, I'm not great in networking in big events. But I will say, like, I've gotten a lot better, and my confidence has gotten a lot better. And I'm now, hey, where are you from? What do you do? And I honestly learned that a lot, not even from Gary, because how Gary is he walks into a room and everybody comes to him. I learned it through my two best friends. They're from Italy, Giampaolo and Andrea Iena. They're just so unafraid to talk to anybody.
That's a cultural thing a little bit, though, I think, right?
It is, but you can learn from it.
Yeah. It seems like it's affected you. Yeah.
Say, I've learned so much from that. And so like for me, just being okay with the rejection, being okay with the pride of like, okay, cool, that didn't work out. It's like dating, the same thing. You can DM 10 different girls and like if they're not feeling it, they're not going to respond. Yeah. And what? You're going to just give up on dating? No, you're going to keep going, persisting, right?
It's like a baby learning how to walk. You're not going to, you're going to stumble. You're not going to give up on walking.
That's right. And sometimes all it is like, I'm a very big like asking questions person. Where did you come from? What did you like to do? You have any siblings? Like what's your like dream job if you had it, And so like that is another approach. It's funny. One of my favorite things that Gary does is oftentimes when we were like going around the city, he would like all around the world. I mean, he would like make sure that we had like a dinner with like 20 executives or like 20 different random people every night of wherever we were, like Dubai, LA, Australia, we would have like these dinners, 20 people, small,
Mm-hmm.
but we'd all try to have one conversation. And Gary would always try to dictate the conversation, obviously. And he would always be like, hey, what's your favorite show on Netflix right now? Go. Hey, do you stream or do you watch TV? Go. Hey, what's your favorite like product right now? And then we would all talk and it would be forced one conversation. So I love
Wow.
that. So I try to do that with my friends too now. Just to try to like you want people to feel a sense of connection. And a lot of times everyone's nervous at the dinner table. No one knows what they want to talk about, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so like
totally.
helping be the people
And
that
so people would just like
facilitate
feel more
that.
comfortable in these micro conversations normally, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Dude,
Yep.
that's beautiful. The next time I am at a large dinner, I'm going to use that.
You know, this is an incredible card game. It's they're based out of LA. We're really not strangers.
You know, that's insane. I interviewed the founder of that game. I love that game because it promotes realness. I love that game.
Yeah, it promotes conversation. Like humans inherently are bad at communication. We're bad because we're just shy, and a lot of times we are afraid that people will reject us, and like, and honestly, like sometimes we're just too selfish. Sometimes we don't like want to know or care about anybody else, and so there's also that. That's why I think games like this is like admit something, like go around the table and admit something. That's cool. Like you can start a conversation. Like helping people have those conversations is a good way to be a facilitator to help other people like level up and grow.
People can kind of compartmentalize, like they'll be good at one area, but then they're not so good at another area. Like maybe they're killing in their career, but they suck in dating. Like that's always interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Some skills don't transfer over, even if they're the same. And that comes with self-awareness too. Like, and this is where social media, if you're like a practitioner, you can't post the same thing on LinkedIn as you can on Snapchat. Too many people try to force the same message in the different rooms. And so if you think about that, as each platform is a different room or a different TV channel, then you can start understanding the different nuances and different ways to communicate. If you're good at communication and you can like break it up and understand that and synthesize that, then you'll understand how these platforms work. Very much like if you're good at networking for work, but you're bad at dating, they're completely two different things. But if the same skill overlapping, then you can have a better chance of getting there. And again, this is all self-awareness, and that's where like a lot of that stuff comes into play.
I'm a big proponent of us growing and us evolving. One of the areas I think that people can have a challenging time with when it comes to growing is friendships. You know, sometimes people just outgrow friendships. So I don't know. Can you speak to this at all? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thought about this a lot. I don't really have many friends from like my high school or younger days. And honestly, like it's not because I outgrew them. It's not any of that. Like I think it's just different paths. I think friendships come and go, and I think that's the beauty of life. I think to get to know certain people in certain moments of your life, those people are there for a reason. That's how life works, kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's not a judgment. I want to be clear. Like, it's not like, oh, yeah, I'm better than you. No. People can be togetger for a time and then they just grow differently, right? And then the two people.
Even my two best friends, who I just talked about, Gianpaolo and Andrea. I lived 4 blocks away from Andrea during the pandemic. I was over his apartment almost every night after like the 12 a.m. finishing of like work on the on-town. I would go over, he would make me dinner, we would drink wine, we would talk. So our friendship completely exploded. Gianpaolo and I were great friends right before the pandemic. We were like hanging out all the time, going out all the time in the city, which was incredible. I lived with Gianpaolo for 6 months in New Jersey for a little while. Our friendship became brotherhood, and that was awesome. Now I went through this whole summer. I have a new girlfriend. Went through this whole summer kind of like pulling myself away a little bit from them, spending more time with the girl. I read this book called Essentialism by Greg McOwen. I highly recommend it.
Amazing book. Okay.
Essentialism is all about minimalism, but not like only about your things, but more about like within your life. And so, you know, again, we talked about me experimenting with each other, like with myself a little bit back in the interview. I've tested myself around certain people how I feel. Because there's some time where you're like around someone, you're like, why am I so mad? Or why do I feel defensive? Why do I feel like off ease? And then you're around certain people, and they're like, why did you bring me so much happiness? Why does this person make me so happy? Then you're around, why does this person keep forcing me to try to do something I don't want to do? Why do I keep saying yes to the things I don't really want to do, things that'll make them happy? I go do it. Ultimately, I become unhappy. So I would always, cool, I'm going to say yes to this person for the third time. And if I'm unhappy again, that means I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And so I did a lot with essentialism this summer. And then there's another book, I forgot, his next book was really good. And then Atomic Habits. Really.
Oh yeah, James Clear, Atomic Habits. Yeah.
Like even me, like I have like.
I'm gonna make you laugh right now, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah,
dude, we got this in common. Look at this.
That's amazing. Oh yeah, the one ball over.
You got yeah. I'm like, and the book talks about removing friction, right? Whatever you can do to remove friction and make it easier for your brain to go there is what we want to do. You're very, very good at going macro with situations. Like the comment you made about when you're at a coffee shop and somebody walks in, you're like, the odds of me and this person being in a coffee shop together at the same time are like billions. And then you're like, you got, 20,000 fans. It's like you could fill up MSG. And now, you just said this, look at how your body is feeling, the little emotions and feelings, and look at that from a macro view. So kudos to you for having that skill, because I think that's probably a huge part of why you've been successful doing what you do. I think that skill is huge, and maybe people could take that away as like going more macro with things.
I appreciate that, and I'm gonna read a text that Gary and I kind of were exchanging yesterday. He had told me some like really cool news about my career, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating. And I sent him 2 hearts, and I said, humbled, thank you. And he said, you are very welcome. And I said, fuck. This patience shit really matters, huh? And he said, more than you know, winky face. And I think that is what a lot of people don't get to experience in their life. There have been so many times I've been asked, why are you still with Gary? Why are you still doing the thing that you're doing? Why don't you just go do it on your own? As you can tell, I feel very hungry, motivated. I want to do a bunch of different things in my life. So a lot of the closest people are asking me that. I just feel like this is a good part of my life, and I don't need to rush it. I'm 30 now. I started with him at like 23. I've grown as a dude. I've grown as a man. I see him, he's 45, 46, hungry as ever, young man still. We've met so many older more mature businessmen and women, and they're still hungry. My mom's 65. She's never really had a career, but she's still hungry to try to figure out her passion. If you can have that patience game, really just like be okay with yourself in the moment and understand that like if you're doing the right thing and you feel like you're on the right path, that persistence to like keep going on that path is very hard. There's going to be so many people dragging you away, distracting you. Drake said, distractions will do you in the truest sense. Like you can get so easily distracted in this world. You become an A&R playlist maker, you are the guy. You continue on that growth. Someone says, hey, why don't you come be my manager? That can deter you from the whole track. You need to have that conversation of what do I really want to do? There's so many distractions that will come in life. And you just got to be able to like narrow your focus,
Absolutely.
And play it for a while. Like 10 years is not a lot of life, really. And if you think about career building and establishing, that's just me putting in the rep. 23, if I'm 33 by the time I step off, or if I'm like now more independent, I start a company with Gary, whatever it is, that only took 10 years. I'm 33, I'm still young as hell,
Absolutely. So many people are blocking themselves from the success that they could be having by way of impatience. I mean, I'm going to humanize it for a second though, but when you're working your butt off every day, it's hard to stay out of the results, man. I'm guilty of that, man. I'll be the first to admit it. Success is like taking a small axe and trying to chop down a big tree. Mm-hmm. You're just like constantly taking this small axe. And before you know it, like after 7 or 10 or 12 years of this small axe, it's going to chop the tree down and it's just going to fall. And it's going to be that moment you had with Gary on the thing where he hit you with the winky face. Much love, D-Rock. Thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. This has been a real blast for me. What's your handle so people can kind of follow up on some of
at D-Rock on Instagram or David Rock NYC on Twitter. I love both of those platforms, so come by and talk.
Amazing. Go check them out. Stay
Awesome.
inspired. Much love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you next episode. Peace.